All right, we are in week 10. So we're more than halfway through the semester, thank goodness. For this primary source, I want to talk about 14.3, the golden bracelets of the lost city of, I'm going to butcher this, Map Ungwapui, South Africa, 13th century. And it's really just a picture of these bracelets with two questions. And real quick, let's answer those two questions and then we'll go through the ones for being the primary source. The first one is, how do these crafted gold illustrate the sophistication of the Mapungwi culture, as well as its desire to display wealth? How do they illustrate sophistication? Gold is a very just wanted, sought after material that humans just look for. Spaniards did it. Excuse that. The Spaniards did it. People in America did it. The gold rush to California was such a big, prominent thing. The expansion out west. Gold has just always been something people have wanted. Just period. So this shows more of, we have all this gold and we're wearing it and displaying it every day, and we're not fighting over it. That's the sophistication. As a desire to display wealth, it's very similar to how we do today, how we wear fancy watches, or our phones, or our computers, or our cars. It's a way to boast yourself, to brag more. Like, it's a way to just inherently say you're better because you have more stuff. I have an iPhone, but I'm not like, oh, I have an iPhone, I'm better than a Samsung user. To me, it doesn't matter. It's a phone that I would rather have over another, and in a capitalist era that we're in right now, it doesn't matter, because you can have an iPhone or an Android or a Google phone or whatever kind of phone you want. You can go still hold on to your BlackBerry from 2006, or there's these new flip phones that are resurrecting for some reason. So to me, this is more of a... Back then, they show it to say, I have more bracelets on my wrist than you do, so therefore I am more humble, but also more rich, because we're not fighting over it, but I'm not bragging about it. Question number 2. Might these particular items have been related to the social structure of the Mapungwe, and particularly the role of the royal wives? Might these particular items have been related? They could have been related to a social structure, as the more gold rings you have on your wrist, the higher social status you are. Which you could also correlate to nowadays, that the more rings you have, or the more books or games, the richer you are. The higher end your car is, the more you've got. And the second half of this question is particularly role of royal wives. And yes, and this could be a polyamorous culture, for lack of a better word. So you could have many, many wives, be royal, and all these wives could have more and more and more gold rings. And you could put more rings on your more favorited wives and less rings on the ones you don't like as much. I just think this is interesting that they're using gold as a way... I love in the first question, sophistication. For example, I have... It's not next to me right now. Something in today that's a big thing for many males, especially, is what gaming console you have. And for me, myself, I'm a big, Nintendo person, but everybody talks down to me because it's not as powerful, or there's not a good online service. But I always say it's the games that are there that I like, that I want to play. But people always look down at me. And so when I finally go and get a different console, I went out and got a PlayStation, I don't see the desire as much to play the games. There's a few games that are there that I'd like, but it's not, oh my gosh, this is blowing me out of the water, which I think has changed from then. As from then, it's, I have more gold, therefore I am better than you, or richer than you, or wealthier, to put it plainly. But it's also the one thing they didn't really talk about. Granted, it's just the one picture with the questions, as there's nothing before or after. Immediately the next page just turns to 14.4. It just doesn't talk about anything. It just shows the rings and asks those questions. But my big questions for this are, why gold rings and why not something else? Gold is a valuable material that you could use to buy or sell. Why hoard it like that? When something is a very limited amount, why do that? Now going through the questions for class, what are the main issues? Before that, who wrote the source and why was it written? The source was written after... The source was written about 1930. Why was this written? It could be written to show you don't need a lot of things, especially in this time of the world, the Great Depression. It could have been shown, hey, we have all this wealth, but you don't need all this wealth. Who was the audience? Archaeological students, really. That's everything before this. It points to just being, we're looking for gold. It could be from miners. There's people looking for stuff. Archaeological students, I feel, is really the target audience. What are the main issues? The main issues, there's really not a whole lot, as it's just those two questions. What questions are left unanswered by the source? Why was gold so important to this culture? Was there wars fought over it? Was there arguments over it? Was there that theory that I had of polyamorous with many wives, and the more wives you had, the more gold rings you got? Because that would be something you could point to. And then you could combat it and say, well, because this was an African culture and not a Middle East or European culture, which also could have done the same thing, you could say they didn't do this in polyamory. Does it reveal a problem or help solve an area of contention? This more doesn't do either. This opens up more questions than anything. I want to point to, like, in the Bible, King David had all those wives and all the concubines, and it would take him, I think it was like 3.5 years to see one a day. And my big deal with that is, like, did he do something similar? If him and his polyamorous relationship, would he give more gold rings to one wife or concubine, or would he be equal across everybody? And how would that impact this here? Do these sources represent a particular bias? Not really. It doesn't boast in saying anything about this. Forgive me, Mapongwe culture, and just like, it doesn't show anything. Doesn't say they're better than any other African culture or anybody else. Are these sources useful? This one, not as much. Not really. I did it because I thought it was going to be really interesting looking at each source. And so when I saw the picture, I was like, yeah, because I'll just give you a little breakdown. I go on the syllabus, see which week we have to do. Go to the table of contents, pick which one I think sounds most interesting, do that one. And so when I got to this one, I was like, I'm going to stick with it because this is how I just would like to do things. Are they reliable? It's an alright source. It's not like, oh my gosh, I'm going to go back and look at this all the time because it's just a picture. I would not use this as an essay source. Just because there's not any really good, tangible, no information I just want to eat up to spit back out. What evidence supports the source? None. Nothing really. And what evidence contradicts it? That I will say there's nothing saying that these gold rings didn't happen. I just want to know more why these gold rings were so important to this culture. Is really my thing. The idea of royalty was brought up, and so I'm curious about that. How was these gold rings involved in royalty? How were they involved in sophistication? What was was there that humbling factor? Was there that you give more gold to wives? Was there you give gold as presents? These are just questions I have. Yeah, looking back over everything, there's not as much I would like to go over. But I just have so many questions that I probably just don't have the time to research just due to quarter-long classes starting. But it's a weirdly interesting topic that I will probably look up later in life just because I own the book now. So yeah, again, if this link does not work, please email me. I mean, if saying that in the video doesn't really help. But yeah, week 10. I think there's only 6 more weeks left to go. I hope these videos are up to your par. I haven't heard any complaints. You seem to just been liking the fact that I've been doing videos. Accordingly to my grades is what I'm assuming. So yeah, on the syllabus it shows another task, though on Canvas it's not uploaded, so either way, we'll just have another video. Have a good week, Professor.